All right. Welcome and thank you for tapping into some Untapped Keg. I am one of your hosts, RJ Zimmerman, here with my other friend, Monte Ball. How you doing, big guy?
I'm doing well, but real quick, your other friend. Why do I gotta be your other friend?
I gotta say, I gotta mess something up in the mornings, otherwise it's not a real podcast, right?
Other friend. The disrespect. No, I'm messing with you, man. I'm doing well. All is well on my end. I'm very, very excited for our special guest today. But real quick, RJ, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm really good. So just got back from vacation, but without further ado, let's introduce our new friend, Becca, the Unashamed Alcoholic. You can find her podcast on all podcast platforms, and I suggest looking it up because it's very good.
It is.
Welcome, Becca. Woo! How are you doing this morning? Uh-oh. Are we having sound issues?
Did we lose her? I think we might be having a little bit of sound issues, but so I had the opportunity to listen to an episode, one of the episodes on Unashamed Alcoholic. I think one of the things I like.
Just wondering what's going on.
Oh yeah, I think one of the things I like the most is just how laid back it is. That's really what we try to do here at Untapped Keg, and I really, really loved that kind of format as I was listening to you share and speak. It was really cool stuff.
Oh, thank you. What an introduction. I love it.
There you are. There you are. How are you doing?
Happy to be here.
Yes, wonderful. We're excited to have you. I mean, it's good old Sunday. Happy Mother's Day to all mothers out there from Untapped Keg family. But we're really, really grateful and honored to really have you on, Becca. So my first question is, obviously us three here are we're all three of us are recovering alcoholics. And just right off the bat, I would love for you to share with our audience a little bit about yourself. So what was kind of that turning point for you, that day that came where you're just like, I'm done. I have to make a decision for myself. I have to step away from alcohol. And, how has it been since? Oh.
We may have there.
I
was wondering. I think there might be a little bit of a delay too with her being in Quebec, but
yeah, that's true. Do you think that she probably may not have to use video? You know what I mean? You think it'd be better if she didn't use video?
Maybe not. It's tough to say.
Right.
Let's see here.
Well, I'll talk to the chat real quick.
What's up, Dan the Man?
Dan the Man, good to see you. Carrie, good to see you as well. So it seems like guys, we're dealing with a little bit of technical difficulties, which is expected. Expected. Welcome to the future. Everything is good old virtual.
Almost how it should be, right?
It's all good. But side note, for those in the stream, in the Twitch, I will be streaming tonight. I'm gonna bust out the Rocket League, couple matches. I really, really love Rocket League, but then I'm gonna play some indie games for sure too. I put it in our Discord. To those who are in our Discord, I got a few indie games that I got to bust out as well. I have yet to play them, and I got to play them tonight. But first off, I'm kicking off some Rocket League, probably around like 9 p.m. So you guys stay tuned. So RJ, yeah, we may we gotta possibly pull an audible here.
So, Mons, what did you do for your mother this morning? I love that you picked it up. Shout out Mother's Day.
Yeah, absolutely. Haven't done anything yet for my mother this morning. Just shot a text to the group. Happy Mother's Day. For my mother, of course, but I do have some gifts for her that she will be receiving today. And yeah, it's gonna be a good time, man. It's gonna be a very good time. Plans for my sister, your wife, today.
I already let her put away the groceries, so you could say it's going really well.
That sounded so misogynistic. What was that?
Well, I guess that kind of would a little bit, but I was getting breakfast, so
I get it.
That's why. And we don't really have those roles, I guess. Like, I'm the one who does the cooking generally. I'm the one who does the dishes generally. I do take a
no. I know. I'm just messing with you. Obviously, there is no misogyny going on over there.
Yeah, you're right. It did not sound good.
Just poking at you. We may have to just do audio. I'm thinking that may work with Becca. Maybe if it's not video and audio, the video might be slowing things down. So, may pull a fast one here. Do you think that we should just go audio?
We'll see.
To get the podcast, and then
she can hear us.
Right. And then I can do something special for our stream. I can even hop on earlier if need be, just so we can get that in. Dana, man, it's a good thing. Good thing your wife does not watch these, RJ.
Yeah, exactly. Oh boy, what is this? I don't like this.
Dana, man, it's gonna be awesome having you on. Whenever we get that date. You've been with us since really the beginning, so we're most definitely fortunate. We're very, very grateful. Very, very grateful to have you, man. So we'd love for you to come on and share whatever it is you'd like to share. Sunday fun day indeed, Carrie. Sunday fun day indeed. No longer Sunday fun day getting drunk, which was what I used to do. Now it's Sunday fun day. Be a boring adult and check my schedule for this upcoming week. Check my credit score.
Oh, Becca can hear us.
Any bills I need to pay. Awesome. Thank you for that, Dana, man. Yeah, Carrie. Yeah, you'll have to meet him. Dan the man. We call him Dan the man. That's Dan the man. Awesome guy. Awesome guy.
So, Becca, if you can hear me, if you just hit the video button down in the bottom left-hand corner again, it'll just put you through on audio.
Dan the man, Carrie, what are you guys' plans today? What are you guys' plans today for this Mother's Day? This Sunday. So we're here in Wisconsin. It's a little windy outside. I think it's going to probably rain.
Is it really? I don't need any more rain. Listen, it's already pushed my plans at work back more than a couple times. And
every time it rains, I literally think of you. I'm like, oh gosh, he's probably going to get a phone call. He's probably going to have to go out.
I don't mind about the phone call, but I need to get in the backyard and I don't need any more rain.
Right. How many snakes do you walk by?
Probably more than I realize.
That's the scary part.
It doesn't.
That's the scary part.
I'm just like, it is what it is. It's a snake. It's not gonna bite me.
It's way worse things. Way worse things like
there's bears.
Forgetting to do your taxes.
Okay.
Or
all right, Becca, can you hear us?
It's good to. That's all right. I can see what you guys are saying. What's a trip? Is it all my relapses happen?
I still can't hear her. Why can't I hear her?
It's good to know, Carrie. Thank you for sharing that in the chat right there. Chilling and dodging the rain, cold and rainy all day. Yep. Dan the man, you know how it is. Whatever the wife wants. Happy wife, happy life. Yes, indeed. Carrie, I had last weekend with my mom when she came to visit from Wisconsin. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool stuff. Pretty cool. What you guys got coming up this week? I wonder if there's any new movies coming out that I can possibly go and check out. The one thing that I miss the most, you guys, like outside of obviously important things like family and getting back to a sense of some normalcy, like the one random thing that I really miss is movie theaters. I'm a sucker for movie theaters. I'm like at that age where I go to movies by myself. And I always used to frown upon that growing up when I was like a teen. I was like, how do people go to watch the movies by themselves? Freaking weirdos. And here I am, a freaking weirdo. going to movies by myself. And I really miss that. Carrie, Dan the man, what do you guys miss the most about, since everything has kind of been on lockdown in a sense because of the pandemic? Let me know if you need any help, RJ. Anything I need to do? I hear you, Becca.
We can hear you now, Becca.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
there we go.
Man.
Nice.
I got it.
Oh.
I did my hair for nothing.
Oh, man. I mean, first off, Becca, thank you for your patience with us. Two amateurs, as we like to call it. Most definitely give credit to RJ. He's pretty much the technical guy, the tech guy.
Not a good thing. It's not a good thing.
I just show up and look ugly.
No, sorry. That's too bad.
It's all good. I mean, we got a pretty good fan base. I think fan base, pretty good listener base, and they understand.
Community.
Thank you, Jesus. I'm struggling.
That's okay.
Pretty good community. They're very patient. Yeah. But so what are your thoughts, RJ? Start it over or get it going?
I think we could just get it going.
I agree. So Becca, the question that I asked you was, obviously us three are recovering alcoholics, and RJ and I has shared, why we, how we made the decision to stop drinking, why we made it, and what we have gained since. So my question to you, I think it'd be awesome for, I think our listeners want to know that as well. So what was like your defining moment of where you were just like, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep, alcohol can't come with me into my future.
Mm-hmm. It had been bothering me for a number of years. And like sort of, I was thinking about my drinking consumption and worried about it. And then when I had my kids, suddenly it was like I had two priorities, drinking or thinking about drinking, because that was really more of the issue, was thinking about drinking, always thinking about it. And then, my kids. And so I was, it was like weighing the two priorities, and it was hard to balance that. Thinking about drinking was already taking up 100% of my brain capacity pretty much. And now I had to also think about kids and what they needed from me. And that was when I started to think I can't manage these two things. And that's when it got to be really more of this is a problem. And then the real moment was I woke up in 2017, after my grandmother's funeral, but like, as you do, the most hungover, I've been in my life probably. And I just thought, I can't do this anymore. That's when I really that's when I looked up that morning and went, take this away from me. So that was really that was the breaking point. And another.
I think we lost you again, Becca, but,
She's talking.
Yeah. Can you hear me? I can hear you
Yes.
fine. I think there's a delay. I think there's a big lag.
Yeah. We can hear you.
I think you're right. I think there is a big lag. Yeah. So I think that both of us have been at that point as well. And thank you for sharing that. That is, so we had a guest on 2 episodes ago, and they kind of reframed how we thought about that moment. And I just want to share that again because it's so amazing. But that's kind of the foundation that we built upon to get to where we are now. So her saying is, rock bottom. That's a heck of a foundation to build upon. And I'm glad that you have built what you've built and that you're here with us now.
Yeah. I think it's important as well too. I think like what you're sharing is so awesome, and I guess like it almost appears as if you're sort of a trailblazer up there in Canada, in Quebec to be exact. So for our listeners, she is located in Quebec, and so we are here in Wisconsin, Becca. And so my next question to you is, we shared it pre-show, like the drinking culture here in Wisconsin is rich. It's heavily embedded into entertainment, anything along those lines. I mean, you're always going to come across that drinking culture in whatever it is that you do here in the state. And I've never been to Canada. I've never been to Quebec. Many of our listeners, I'm sure, haven't as well. So what is it like up there? And that may be a vague question in a sense, but the drinking culture in Canada, in Quebec, what is it like up there?
Yeah. Well, Canada, I mean, it's still, you're in the side who, like the lesser side of people. The majority of people drink, so it's more uncommon if you don't. Still, I think the percentage is like 79% of people drink. Like that, it's still like a higher majority than people who don't. And then for the most part, so lower than you guys, like in the States, I think it's pretty much 21 from what I understand. And then in Quebec, it's even less. It's 18. So we border Ontario, and the joke has always been like, people go, as soon as you turn 18, you go from Ottawa to where I am in Gatineau, you cross the bridge to go party in Hull because the drinking age is lower. And, so, I mean, they say, like, does it encourage younger drinking? I don't know, because when I was making fake ID and going out when I was 17, 18, like it didn't, the 19, it's arbitrary. Like,
right.
Does it encourage earlier drinking at 18, a lesser age? No, it probably just makes it better because you don't have to be making horrible fake IDs like I was doing. But it's, what's frustrating now is we're still in a lockdown. I don't even have my first vaccine yet. Like we're very much behind you guys. We're still in a period of essential services only. And so I couldn't go to the store and buy them, or a friend whose father died. I couldn't go to the store and buy my kids balloons or a little something extra for their birthday, or a condolence card for my friend, because that's all considered non-essential items, but the wine and the beer is all available. So, that's what when you talk about what's the drinking culture, well, it's available. It's right there in your face. It's always, it's what's important, right? Like it's a big part of the culture.
That's huge. That's huge. And that's kind of similar as to what happened up here, correct? Or RJ, right here, when we first had that lockdown, liquor stores were open. Liquor stores were deemed
they never closed
business. And that was kind of a shock in a sense, but also thinking on the other side of that coin where it's, people can actually die from withdrawals of alcohol. And so I guess it's almost similar in a sense from the Canadian, right, the Quebec and the Wisconsin culture. And I'm just really excited actually that you're sharing this information, because I think it's important that we understand that us Wisconsinites, people in Wisconsin, like there's other places that have this drinking culture that needs to be talked about. And it seems like when you talk about it, people seem to get a little uncomfortable about it as well too. So my next question for you, and then RJ, I'll shut up and let you start asking some questions, is once you started this journey, Becca, of speaking out, advocating for mental health, advocating for those who are suffering in silence, being that hope for people to share their own stories. Have you experienced any sort of barriers or hurdles when it comes to people not wanting to talk about it because they feel uncomfortable? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, that's a really good question. When I first started it, I was like, will anyone ever want to talk to me about this? And personally, on the one side for the podcast, and then on the other side for me personally, once I started talking to people in my personal life that I was doing the podcast, that I had this, would I get any blowback from that? And, I haven't at all. And for the podcast, no, of course I get rejection sometimes from people who are probably way too famous for me to have on my podcast. But in my real life, I build it up in my head still sometimes that, this person will never talk to me again once they find out I'm doing this, or that I'm an alcoholic. And then I avoided talking to a lot of people for a long time.
Feel uncomfortable around us.
Friends, it's anybody.
Yeah, I'll let you explain it, RJ. You already know where I'm going.
Yeah, so when you tell people like that you are friends with, or that who you, let's say, first time you go out to a restaurant or something, and you say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't drink." You don't have to say like you're sober, you're an alcoholic. You just say you don't drink. Do people tend to like draw back? Oh, I don't drink very often. Like I just drink on the weekends. I usually keep it to like 1 or 2. That I don't really have an issue. Have you noticed that? Because it's literally every single time I bring it up, people come back with that.
Yeah, that's funny. I find that now, okay, say last week I said oh, our school's going back this week for the kids. Like, thank God, the school's going back. And I was just like, yes, to everyone at work. And someone's like, that calls for some shots. And I was like, well, actually I don't drink. I'm in recovery. And they're like, oh, sorry. I didn't mean to make that joke. And I was just like, dude, like you can make joke. Like I'm not like personally affected by that saying. I'm just letting you know, because you didn't know before that, now, like that. I don't drink actually. Like I won't be doing shots. I'll open a Pepsi in celebration. I won't be taking shots. It's more just for your awareness. You can say things that are related to alcohol. I'm not going to like cower in the corner and cry because you brought up drinking, when I don't drink. Like it's, it's just when you just want to be like, guys, no big deal. I'm aware that alcohol exists.
So true.
Like, it's more of that. Like people go, oh, sorry. I didn't realize. Like, okay, that's fine.
So true.
What you have to say is, it's okay. I'll have a shot of pickle juice, and watch their faces turn mortified.
No, but that's really funny stuff. And we really appreciate you sharing that, because we always talk about how in our friends, our circle of friends, and our coworkers, etc., when we speak on, when we share, that we are in recovery from alcohol, it seems like they get a little uncomfortable about and slightly defensive as well too, as RJ stated, where it's like, oh, I don't drink a lot, I only drink a little bit, and it's like, you do you. I mean, I just because I can't handle it doesn't mean you should like worry in a sense. It's just, it doesn't mix well with my personality. So, outside of this, we would love to learn a little bit, a lot more about you, Becca, about Unashamed Alcoholic. So are there any sort of advocacy projects that you're working on, that you'd love to share? or anything along those lines, because you've had some really great guests on your podcast. Again, you guys, this is the Unashamed Alcoholic. Check her out. She's had some pretty cool guests. And I guess what I'm asking is, outside of your podcast, are there any advocacy projects you're working on, some of your goals? Would love to hear it.
Yeah, no, thanks for that question. It's funny because the podcast started I was such a whim 6 months ago, where I just finally told my story publicly for the first time, and then was just like, oh, that felt so good. Now, now what can I do with this? And so I was like, oh, podcasts seem to be all the rage. Let's look into that. And, how can I turn this into an idea? So that it's still in its, I mean, I don't know where I see that going and how long that'll go for. But it's still in its, I'd say, infancy. I'm just getting the hang of, the podcast now. And, it's kind of picking up steam, which is great. I'm hoping to hit 10,000 downloads in the next few weeks, I'd say hopefully 2 weeks or so. So I'm really happy with how that's gone. Because at the beginning, I was like, listen, if one person outside of my mom listens to this podcast, then it's a success. And so then I just started speaking. You mentioned it earlier at the through my work as a public servant. So I work for the government of Canada, and I just became sort of a member of their, a speaker as a member of their the Federal Speakers Bureau on mental health. So that's kind of linked to the podcast, but it's outside of it because I'm able to speak about my story, which includes the podcast doing that. But that's really, if a team or a group wants you to come and share your lived experience, that's what you do. So I did that really for the first time this week on a panel. And there was 4,000 people who, tuned into that live stream. So I'm really happy with that. And one day I would like to be able to go into schools and share my story, because I'm a big proponent of talking to kids early on and showing that it doesn't have to be a part of growing up. It doesn't have to be. I always say, my drinking started typically as a teenager, but in reality, it didn't have to. We always assume that all teenagers drink, it's a part of you growing up, but it really doesn't have to be. We've just made it so it is as a society, and our culture is just ingrained in us that teenagers drink and you party. But really, I wasn't ever given any other option. No one ever talked to me and said, hey, you actually, as a child, as a teenager and as an adult growing up, you actually don't have to drink. Alcohol just seems to be so automatic in our lives. We don't really consider the choice of by the way, kids go to schools and do those chats, with kids, and my kids would just probably die seeing me there. But I would, that's something I would like to do, just really just expand the speaking side of it. Podcast, yeah, that's great. It's awesome. I'm really happy with it. But I'd like to kind of just continue the speaking.
I hear you.
That's awesome. So how many podcasts did you listen to before you started yours? Because I'm just interested on why you settled on a podcast. Because I really like what you're doing. I really like that you are trying to remove the stigma behind being called an alcoholic and using the word, because I didn't use alcoholic till we started the podcast. And then number 2 was how you got your first guest, because I really like that story. I've seen you post it on Twitter, and I think it's a really cool story. So
So for how I started landed on podcast, that I thought about that, and I'm sitting in almost the same spot right now as when the idea came to me. And I was listening to podcasts. I was listening to like Watch What Happens Live. I was listening to Ask Eliza, like these, sort of comedy type things, reality show related stuff. And that was more like when I'd go for a walk, I'd listen to those. And I don't know, I remember thinking, how can I reach people? You can't really, it's hard to do through social media, like to share stories. You can't like verbally, like how can I continue to talk about my story? And then I thought, what's a way I can bring attention to it? And that's when I came across the idea of like, using well-known people, because it's really tapping into their platform, not just mine, because, I have a small following, but the people who I talk to, it's their platform who we can, use to spread them the information out there, because I'm using their larger following to get the information across. And I mean, oh my God, trying to find the first guest when you have like 100 followers and just a hope and a prayer, and you have no examples or anything you've ever done before. I just kind of put it out there to a bunch of people and hoped someone said yes. And then Joao Franco, I woke up one morning and he'd messaged me back and said he would love to do it. So I was like, okay, this is great, because having someone who is on TV and recognizable and had a good following meant that it was suddenly going to give me credibility to ask the next person, which is what it just kept kind of doing after that. And, you guys write and tell your story again and again. And so people, I think a lot of them didn't care that my following was small or I hadn't been doing this for long, because the idea when you're an alcoholic and you're trying to help other people, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter if you're going to get a lot of downloads or like, how many people are listening. What matters is that you're sharing your story and hopefully helping someone. So I think that's what, hopefully, I think all of them feel. So that's kind of how it all, I think that's the origin story.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And that's usually how it is. I mean, it's, you're kind of, like you said, you're going out, you're just sending out a prayer and hopefully getting somebody. And it's such a wonderful, wonderful feeling when you wake up, when you go back and check your email or what have you, and they say yes. That's a wonderful, wonderful feeling. So you're right. I think there's so much power, so much empowering when you share your story, when you constantly share your story, when you invite others to share their stories, all the above, providing that hope and encouragement. So with that, in Canada, in Quebec, how is the recovery community there? Is it, as you've mentioned that, I think you stated that you could start drinking at 18 there. And so I'm assuming obviously people are starting to drink obviously at younger ages, possibly getting addicted to it at an earlier age. So my question is, what is the recovery community like there? How is it there? And again, maybe another vague question, but I'm just very interested to learn more about your area.
Yeah, no, I think it's probably pretty similar. For me, I'm part of a 12-step program, AA, if we want to be specific. I think, that's around the world, right? Like that's accessible everywhere. And I think that because of that, because you can find something like that everywhere, that's so good. Like that's what matters. It doesn't differ depending on what country or province or state or whatever you're in. You can find a 12-step program, whatever it may be, because that's what I think a lot of people rely on. And now with things like what you guys are doing, what I'm doing, what you see online on social media with, the recovery community, it's so accessible to just put out the call and say, I'm struggling today, guys, or, does anyone have, and now with Zoom meetings everywhere, I mean, I've Zoomed into ones, in Ireland, I've got one in Minnesota, it's so accessible. Like the pandemic has made, jumping into any meeting at any time possible, which is wonderful, right? Because I think a lot of people have been struggling this year, and you can't just get out and, go anywhere really for a long time. We couldn't, I still can't, you couldn't just, now you can easily hop into a meeting. We found that makes it so much more accessible. So it doesn't matter where you are and what your community is, what it's like, maybe if you're in a small town or it's hard to get to a meeting or whatever, you can hop into them any time of day, anywhere in the world. So that's just, I think that's been a wonderful thing to come out of the last year.
I agree with you on that. I like that. Go ahead, RJ.
So what's it been like for the past 6 months? You've had these, big name guests, and every episode you're getting more comfortable, and it shows. So have you been able to feel getting more comfortable as you're podcasting, or do you just think it's more of the same? How's that been? Because I know I feel a lot more comfortable, but it's been a long time. So.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely gotten more comfortable. I mean, I remember the night before I did the first one with Joao, I don't think I slept all night. I had memorized all of the questions. I was shaking I was so nervous. Also, I think it was about episode 19 where I realized I had the microphone not properly plugged in. So the audio gets a lot better. It's a certain episode after. So, it's funny. That's all these learning curves along the way of the technical side of things, where I've understood to get through editing an episode. But for sure in my conversations side of things, now I definitely do my research. I still write out what I'd like to cover with the person, but we do it by Zoom, and it's a very natural, it just winds up feeling like a conversation, like what we're having today. It just winds up being very casual. And sometimes I don't even need to really rely on anything I've prepared, because we just have a conversation. It's a subject we're very familiar with. So, it most of the time it just flows. So, I've gotten less nervous. I mean, I think at first it was who I was speaking with. I mean, some of them, like you said, they're kind of big, big names. That makes me a little nervous. It makes me nervous when I admire them too, outside of this. So yeah, I think I'll always be a little nervous going into a conversation, but I've gotten more comfortable for sure.
Yeah. And we can tell for sure. I mean, you were doing some wonderful things with your podcast, and again, kind of attacking that stigma that surrounds mental health and addiction. And so I do know that you mentioned the 12-step program. So that is obviously a wonderful program, rich tradition with that. Outside of the 12-step program, what are some other sort of avenues that you've taken to really help yourself help strengthen your recovery and your recovery journey?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the podcast plays a big role in it, because that ensures I'm always talking about it,
right.
And always sort of in the recovery lingo, the loop of chatting about it somehow. I think as I get more into speaking outside of the podcast, and whether it's through work or whatever it winds up being, every time I share my story, it helps me personally. It helps reinforce what I'm doing. It helps me, kind of feel more confident in myself and where I am today, as opposed to what I was, because every now and then there's still a little thing going, wouldn't it be nice to have a beer on a sunny day now outside on a patio? But if I continue to just share my story, and I get that feedback that I get, and I share it let's say just for me, it's like a little extra step inside me that like builds on top of every other time I've told it. And it helps me just go, yep, you're doing the right thing. Yeah. So, I just find that like sharing the story, however it may be, that's what continues to help me in my recovery. And I have little things too, like, I take time for myself. I say a little thing at the end of the day. I make sure I get outside a lot. Like there's a lot of different aspects to, I find, your personal mental health and well-being, and, that all kind of go together with recovery.
Absolutely.
Besides the podcast, and has there been any other hobbies you've kind of picked up along the way? Because I mean, drinking for all of us took up so much time. So I picked up cooking, and that was a couple of years after. Yeah. Is there anything that you've kind of noticed that you've picked up?
It's like I only realized when I started the podcast and how much time it takes and the effort that goes into that. I'm like, I never had a hobby before. This is my hobby. And so, yeah, the podcast is definitely taking like time consuming hobby. I try to go for walks, like fairly frequently. I got a dog, so that's definitely taking up a lot of time as with a puppy. So yeah, I find I'm trying to fill a lot of the hours now with other things that are, consuming and good for you. I'm also going to move in a month. So I feel like I'm just putting every single thing on my plate that could take up time and energy that one could right now.
Yeah.
You also have the mornings now too, where you can do stuff, unlike before, where it used to be till 1, 2 in the afternoon before you felt like getting up and moving.
Yeah.
No, this is really awesome stuff. So we had an amazing conversation with a guest a couple weeks back, and she did a phenomenal job of really speaking on the reward system. For an example for myself, walking away from the game of football was very difficult for me, because for 18, 19 years of my life, that was my reward system. That was that physical side of things. I, was rewarded by playing hard, running hard, etc. And now when that was gone is when I really slipped into a deeper pit of depression and alcoholism. And alcohol really, really became my crutch, that reward system. And so obviously us three being in recovery, and RJ already asked about the hobbies. Is there any sort of thing that you do possibly when you get the urge, when you think about that beer, that you would love after a long day? Because that's that reward system that we're used to, where you get home from work, whatever, you open up a beer and you kind of are like, okay, today was a good day. Outside of obviously your podcast that you mentioned, what is it that you do to kind of reinforce your journey? Make sure that you reinforce it in your brain that is not what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. So hopefully that was a question.
Yeah, I play the tape to the end a lot. That good old saying, right, is
right.
Like, sure, that first sip of a fresh beer would be great, but that's not where I would end it, right? Like I would be throwing up somewhere. That's how that would end up. It wouldn't be like, enjoying something nice and calm somewhere. It would wind up in chaos and vomit, basically. So, I play the tape to the end. I see where it'll bring me. And I know that as much as that would be nice, quote unquote nice, it isn't actually nice. And, I reward myself with, really like, I find I really enjoy buying really nice gourmet sort of meals and desserts and stuff. And I find like I enjoy having that to look forward to. Like, well, it used to be having that bottle of wine to look forward to. Now I have like a really nice dessert, something really fancy. Like, it's something I still like that idea of looking forward to something, because I used to spend my day looking forward to when I could drink and that drink. But that never ended up well. But if it's just like about eating, eating something, it's just that the where it's not going to end up well is my waistline, but it's not going to really hurt anyone. So ultimately it's okay. So I spend a lot of money at like really fine bake shops and stuff, but it's great for the economy, bad for
right.
my core.
Those
Go ahead, RJ.
cravings are real.
Yeah.
They are real. I try to cut back and just keep getting more, but I've kind of done the same thing. So I was actually thinking about this a couple days ago that I wanted to bring to this episode. I noticed that since I stopped drinking, like my taste buds,
you gotta have something,
right? My taste buds have been more sensitive. Like I can pick out more flavors and do different flavor combinations that I didn't realize I liked before, but I know I like now. Have you noticed that being into your fine dining and your desserts and stuff? Have you noticed it's not just sweet that you taste and it's not just salt, but you can get like these more subtle flavors that go through there?
That's funny. No, I don't know if I've noticed that or not. I've definitely, I enjoy, I guess I appreciate things now. I find I appreciate the quality of something now, and like the good taste of something, and the time that it's like someone's made it. Like I appreciate that more. You don't appreciate anything when you're drinking. You just like, it's just drink that thing, get it in, let me get a little cocktailed or drunk or whatever it may be. Like that's it. Give it, like it's, I still want that instant gratification of something now, but I find like I can enjoy, savor something, food. And I've tried to cut out sugar because I know like, it's not good for me. I have like a closet full of candy right now in front of me, but I'm actually staring at cotton candy sitting on the counter right now.
Oh my God. I'm so glad I'm so glad you mentioned
I figure,
that.
like, I mean, well, I feel like I've got to have something, like give me something to enjoy. I'm not going to deprive myself of that too. I've taken one thing out of my life that needed to be, it was required. I needed to, in order to live life and live a good life, I needed to take out alcohol. But yeah, sugar's not great for you, but like I'm gonna keep eating my desserts.
Oh my gosh, you're literally speaking our language.
Your relationships with everyone,
right? Becca, you were literally speaking our language. We talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I cannot stop eating sugar. I think my cross addiction is a real thing. People can, for those who may not know, cross addiction is, let's say that I was addicted to alcohol. Well, now that I don't drink alcohol, that reward system, that yearning, my brain yearning for something else, kind of went to sugar. And it's been very difficult trying to lose weight because I can't stop eating sugar. So I just want to kind of like just share that because we're right there on this topic of what we are doing nowadays, now that we do not consume alcohol anymore. It's so crazy how us alcoholics are just, we have a lot in common, a lot in common.
I know.
Even
so, that's what I always find with the podcast. I find with the podcast that when I talk to these people who are on TV or well known for as an author, or they were a basketball player, a hockey player, it doesn't matter because I can still find something connected to it in their story. And that's, because we're in recovery, we're all in recovery. We all have something we can find in common in our stories. And that's what makes it so beautiful and so accessible to everyone, is that, it doesn't matter what you did in your life or, what your career was. If you're in recovery, like, we can find something in common. And I think that's just the key to sharing these types of stories.
I agree.
That's something that Mons and I talk about a lot. Is we say, you know, we're the last to throw stones because our houses are very, very brittle glass, right? Everybody who's sober from whatever you're sober from, in recovery from whatever you're in recovery from, like, we know what our pasts are, and we're okay with sharing some of us are okay with sharing our past. Some of us are just trying to get to a level where you're okay with that. But everybody's been in the dumps with this, right? So that is something that is, like, when I listen to your podcast, when I listen to other podcasts, that I really, it helps me kind of share my story a little bit more, because listening to other people be vulnerable, it's probably why AA works. It allows me to be vulnerable too, because we understand.
Absolutely.
We understand.
So Becca, question. Since you've been in recovery, if there was one thing that you can say that you've gained from this journey, one thing, what would it be? What would that be? You know, if there was just one answer, one thing that you have gained from being on your journey, what would that be?
It would be the ability to live in the present moment. You know, when I was drinking, I was only thinking about my next drink and thinking about when I would start drinking and you know, when could I drink today? Tomorrow, will I drink tomorrow? And like almost looking forward to that. Like that's what I had in my life to look forward to. I remember that feeling of looking forward to the next day, because there would be another day to drink, or I could, you know, where I had this plan and I'll be drinking during that. So it's great. And it was the center of everything. And so, but always in the future, I was never thinking about what I was actually doing in the moment. I probably wasn't important, but you know, now I actually have the ability and privilege to live my life in the moment and be present in it and clear-minded. So I think that's just, you know, it's that kind of dawned on me only recently, that I have that ability now to live for the moment, in the moment. And I'm not always thinking about something else. My mind's not cluttered up with something else. I'm really in the present, living my life.
Gosh, you provide some really awesome answers. Again, to those who may just now be tuning in, this is Becca with the Unashamed Alcoholic, her podcast. This is some pretty cool stuff. Pretty cool.
To kind of bring everything around. So I don't know if I've shared this on the podcast, but it took me about 6 years to call myself an alcoholic. I actually never said it out loud until we started the podcast. And it was, I don't know, Mont said it first, and I was like, oh yeah, I am too. I guess I better say it. And the first couple times I was very tepid about it. How long did it take you? Because you're trying to remove the stigma behind saying you're an alcoholic. And how long did that take you before you were comfortable saying that you were an alcoholic? Was it right away? Was it a year?
It was, I mean, when I started going to meetings, I would say it in the meeting, because like, I felt like that's what you did. That's what everyone else is doing. But I couldn't, right. I had a hard time believing it as it was coming out of my mouth. And that was a few months into sobriety. And I thought like I'll just say it because I'm in the room here and everyone else is saying it, whatever. But it couldn't, even though I'm sitting in an AA meeting, I couldn't be an alcoholic. You know, it was so hard to say that word out of my mouth. But then I started saying it more. I would take pride in my celebrations and my birthdays. And I would say it a little more in my personal life. Mm-hmm. And then why I started the podcast was because I got sick of not being able to say that word, because I hadn't said it really openly for the whole time I was in recovery, because we just don't like casually throw it around in a conversation. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, but why? I haven't been saying it because of the stigma attached to it that our society puts on it, but I want to be able to say it because that's what I am. So I just thought, well, if I just start saying it, then it'll be fine. And so that's kind of how it started. I just started saying it, and I started the podcast with, if I put it in the podcast title, I'm going to have to be okay with it. So I really, that's how it started. And kind of even now I'm still getting comfortable saying it. Yesterday, I went to a restaurant to get takeout, still not allowed to eat it anywhere here. I had to go to rent a restaurant to pick up takeout, and they'd had on their Facebook, they'd had these Mother's Day ideas, and it was all wine related. So when I went to the counter yesterday, I said to the girl, you might want to just add in some non-alcohol related ideas for Mother's Day, because not everyone drinks. And I said, I'm an alcoholic to her. It's just like weird, still to say that just to a stranger, but I wanted her to understand where I was coming from. So, I was nervous about it, but I did it. And I think the more times you do it, the more times I keep saying it, the better and easier it will. It still can be strange for sure.
Absolutely. I think, and little stuff like that, telling, sharing that with that person, just so that it becomes more inclusive, is an important thing. That is advocacy right there. And that's very, very important. And it's a lot with what RJ and I do down here in Wisconsin, because again, the drinking culture is really, really rich here. But in the same breath, we think, okay, since it's heavily advertised here, since this is this is the capital of drinking in the States, we feel as if then that provides us with more work or more opportunities to help out people. And so my next question to you is, how has it felt, when people reach out to you? I'm sure you receive messages from folks who are thanking you for sharing your story. How does that feel? How rewarding is that to know that your voice is helping others?
Yeah, it's hard to put into words, because, sometimes I put out the podcast and I don't hear anything, from anyone. You just think, is this just going into a black hole? Like, is this reaching anyone? Like, is anyone listening to, not even people in recovery, but does anyone even care? And, but I have to hold out hope that someone somewhere, even if I don't hear from them, because I don't want to make everyone who is impacted by this or who listens to it have to write me some accolades or something. But just that it's somehow, somewhere, someone is like, oh yeah, no, that's a good point. Oh, I hadn't thought of that. Or, oh, good, I'm not alone. And that's all. I don't have to hear about everyone's personal experience from it to have make a difference. And I have to remind myself of that just because I don't hear anything sometimes doesn't mean it doesn't make a difference somewhere. But when I do get those emails or messages from someone who says something, oh man, like it's hard to put into words how that makes me feel. It's overwhelming, to know that something that I used to be so scared of saying and talking about now is making a difference to someone else, or helping them or encouraging them or whatever it may be. Like, it just seems it's so wild, because just seems so simple. Like, I could have been talking about it openly all along. And if more people did, maybe I would have felt that same thing from someone else's story, and it just makes me go like, it's such a simple recipe we have, is sharing our stories, and that can help someone. It's just it's unbelievable.
I agree. I do agree.
Me too. That is what it's all about. That's what, I think that's honestly behind both of our kind of stories, because I listened to Chris Hardwick, I don't know if his old podcast, and he used to talk a lot about his sobriety journey and why he got sober and everything. And then that helped me at the start of mine. So that's why I wanted to start a start a podcast with Mons to kind of both of us going back and forth about it, and kind of how it, it, as much as it sometimes doesn't affect everything in our life can affect our sobriety. And then also when we approach things like you did the ads in the Facebook, like we're approaching it in our sobriety as well. So everything kind of comes back to it, whether we want it to or not. And I kind of want to let people know, like, that's okay. It's okay that, some things that you used to really enjoy, you don't enjoy so much anymore. And it doesn't have to be, alcohol related. It can be anything. It can be, friendships. It can be, what you've enjoyed doing on the side. I don't know. But just seeing this kind of, you hearing your story and hearing why you, kind of do what you do and how you've been doing it. It really is inspiring to us. And I've seen people comment on Twitter, and I know everybody there really appreciates what you're doing as well. So I guess to wrap up, do you have any, words of encouragement for people out there? Do you have any, anything that you'd like to share? Any upcoming guests you'd like to promote? Again, it's Unashamed Alcoholic Podcast. We recommend everybody check it out. We really, really enjoy listening to it, and you have really good conversations on there.
Thank you. Oh, that's really kind. My words of encouragement, I always sort of say what I wish I had known. And that's that it's okay to talk about this, that it's okay to talk about if your alcohol consumption, which a lot of people have been in the last year, in isolation and your life being a bit different, but just to tell someone, whether it's a stranger like online that you're feeling connected to and through the recovery community, or me or you guys or a friend or a family member or your therapist or whatever, talk to someone, because you're not alone. You're not weak. It's not a failure, whatever. It's okay to be worried about that. And I think, that goes back to the emphasis that our society and our culture puts on the value of drinking. You feel like you're an outsider if you can't meet that or match that, or, and you're not. Like, there's just such a wonderful community of people who don't drink, whether you're sober curious, in recovery, in a 12-step program. It's a huge spectrum of people who don't drink, and it's great. It's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful thing. And the other thing is, that it's fun. You can have fun still in sobriety. I think that's a big fear a lot of people have. I thought I would never have fun again. Yeah, I thought I would never go to why would I ever go to a concert again? All these things, but I have much more fun at everything I do now than I ever did when I ever thought I was having when I was drinking. So these little nuggets of information, like, I just want to keep saying over and over, because, it'll make a difference to someone out there who's worried or thinking about it or whatnot. So upcoming guests, I've got some really great ones. I have Ken Seeley from Intervention. I've got Bronwyn Windenberg from The Real Housewives of Orange County. Nice. I've got the guys from Knocking Doors Down podcast. There we kind of did a podcast exchange with each other. I have Ann Dowsett Johnson, who is a writer, and she's in recovery herself. So, it's like just such great, diverse conversations with people who are from all walks of life and all different backgrounds. So really excited.
That's exciting. That really is exciting. And again, guys, the Unashamed Alcoholic, Becca, this was awesome. And again, we did have some technical difficulties earlier, but we really, really appreciate your patience. We really, really appreciate your willingness to be open and share. We also really, really appreciate your advocacy work up there as our neighboring country. And the last comment that I'll make is, my goodness, it's kind of like we are the neighbor below you making all the ruckus, and you're kind of like stomping on the floor to tell America to get our stuff together.
So much noise.
Get it together. My gosh, you obviously.
No, I'm up there. I'm up here just going. Give me some vaccine.
Yeah, we got a lot of work that we need to do down here in this country, especially, regarding mental health. So as our neighboring country, we appreciate your patience as well as we work on getting it together.
So thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Again, the Unashamed Alcoholic Podcast, find it on all podcast services. You can find us. You find also Twitter handle is Unashamed Alc on Twitter at Unashamed Alc ALC. You can find Monts at Monte Ball 28. You can find me at It's Trickster, ITZ. The I is a 1 in Trickster. And you can find us at Untapped Keg everywhere. Podcast, YouTube, and Twitch. Thank you everybody for joining us. And everybody have a good week. Let's try to be better tomorrow than we were today. Because at least if we don't make it, we tried. Thank you, everybody.